Welcome back, folks. I'm Frizz, and today we are going to be breaking down the Ghoul Archetype from the recently released Book of the Dead. In case you are unaware, somehow, which presumably means that you're new to tabletop role-playing games, ghouls are a staple of the undead bestiary in pretty much every tabletop game. And for good reason. They are creepy as hell because cannibals that slink through the night and eat people both dead and alive is generally a little bit freaky. But with the Book of the Dead, Paizo has actually created rules that allow for you to play as a ghoul. So what exactly do you get from being a absolutely terrifying creature that eats humanoids? Well, let's just jump right into it. The Ghoul Dedication itself isn't hugely complicated, but it is the most important part of any character that is going to be a ghoul because it gives you, all the fun little stuff. So first off, this is a level 2 dedication, though technically there are rules for you taking this at level 1 if you want to start the game as a ghoul. You just have to say, I am locking in to take this feat at level 2. Can I please start as a ghoul? Thank you very much. But regardless, the prerequisite for taking this is that you have been killed by ghoul fever, which is a disease that all ghouls carry. Now, after you've died, you stood back up again. And while your personality has also changed, your body changes as well. All ghouls have pointed ears, bluish skin, and their fingernails sharpen into claws and their teeth become razor sharp. And of course, you have a freakishly long tongue. Once you take this dedication, you get the ghoul and undead traits, and you get the basic undead benefits. Now, basic undead benefits are something that literally every single undead gets. Stuff like knowing neck roll, getting better vision in the dark, negative healing, and resistance to negative effects and disease and poison, and of course, your need to eat humanoid flesh. Additionally, on top of all of that, ghouls get 2 unarmed attacks, one being a claw that deals 1d4 slashing damage that has the agile and finesse traits, and the second that is a set of jaws that deal 1d6 piercing damage and have the finesse trait. Basically, you can now rip people to pieces with your body, and isn't that fun? Additionally, you get the consume flesh action. Consume flesh is really, really important for how this archetype works, and it allows you to really figure out exactly what it is Paizo has in mind for ghouls in combat. So consume flesh is a 1-action activity that you can take, and you have to be next to the corpse of a small or larger creature that has recently died, so in the last hour. Once you, tear a chunk of flesh out of that corpse with your mouth, you devour it, and you become satiated for 1 hour. Now, what do I mean by satiated? Satiated is a state that you can be in, because ghouls are pretty much always hungry. You can always go for a snack. But right after you eat, you are going to be satiated and you're not going to be extremely hungry. This is a binary state. If you are satiated, then you're satiated, and if you're not, then you're not. There isn't like a point system where you can have a certain number of meals or stock up on meals all at once to then make yourself super satiated. For now, at least. But regardless, a lot of the further feats in this archetype allow for you to give up your satiated status for additional effects. Just be ready to eat people, but thankfully, adventurers make a lot of corpses anyway. Considering how much you're going to be eating people, you might as well get something each time that you do it, and that is exactly what the Replenishing Consumption feat does. Now whenever you, eat corpses to satiate yourself, you also actually heal yourself as your flesh knits back together as you somehow suck negative energy out of whatever you're eating. Once per 10 minutes, whenever you use Consume Flesh, you regain 1d6 hit points for every 2 levels that you have. So pretty much, at level 3 you get healed for 2d6, and at level 5 you get healed for 3d6, etc, etc. That is not very much healing, if I'm being honest. However, It's very flavorful for a ghoul to just keep on eating something over and over and over again till there's nothing but bones left, and getting healed for doing that is going to be nice and is going to help keep you alive for a little bit longer. Swift Leap is another level 4 feat where you spend a single action and then you quickly leap towards or away from someone. For one action, you leap. And this is important because this movement doesn't actually trigger reactions. So you can leap away from someone to force them to have to move up adjacent to you, and also it's just one action to leap. However, if you're satiated and willing to give up that status, you can choose to give up your satiated status and instead high jump or long jump instead of making a leap, and this still does not trigger reactions, as ghouls are freakishly fast, so just spontaneously jumping long distances is actually pretty normal for them. As long as you have a good athletics, you can get pretty good use out of this. Although if you do have quick leap, then the only real benefit that you get from this is that you don't trigger reactions, which will be very useful in particular combats. At level 6, you can take the Feverous Enzymes feat. This feat allows for your fangs and claws to exude a infectious enzyme, which is related to ghoul fever, but isn't actually ghoul fever. For 2 actions, you make a strike with your claws or your jaws, and if this attack hits, then it deals negative damage instead of whatever its normal damage type is. And also on a hit, the target halves any healing that it receives until the start of your next turn. Whoever you attacked, or a friend of theirs, can spend 2 interact actions to squeeze the enzymes out of whatever wound you made to remove this effect early. If you're satiated and willing to give that up, you can boost up your enzyme's power to increase the duration of the half healing effect for 1 minute. This is pretty good, although I don't know how often you're going to be running into enemies that actually heal very much in combat. Normally that's not a super common effect to run into. More important though, is the fact that all of the damage is negative damage. The reason why that's so important is because that means that you can bypass all physical resistance. So if you run into a creature that resists a lot of your attacks and your natural attacks aren't hugely effective against it due to its resistances, you can just use Feverish Enzymes to bypass all of that entirely. Grave Strength is a pretty simple feat in what it actually gives you, as the flesh that you've eaten over the course of your time as a ghoul has made you substantially stronger. This allows for you to get the advanced undead benefits, which basically gives you dark vision if you didn't already have it, increases your bonus against poisons and diseases to +2, and poison resistance to half your level, and you also get a +1 circumstance bonus on saving throws that would make you paralyzed or make you fall asleep, because generally those are things that undead aren't supposed to do. On top of all of that though, you also get a +5 status bonus to your speed, specifically while you are satiated. This is, honestly, pretty good. Getting a bonus to your speed whenever you're satiated, which if you're a ghoul, you're going to be eating pretty much any corpse that you come across, so it's not all that unlikely for you to be satiated. That's pretty nice. It's a nice suite of benefits that are going to be broadly useful, in addition to a mobility enhancement. What's not to love? One classic ghoul ability that you might have noticed is missing is paralyzing everyone constantly with all of their attacks. And while PC ghouls don't quite get that ability, thankfully, as it would be incredibly overpowered, Paralyzing Slash is a level 8 feat that allows for you to get a little bit of that. For 2 actions, you strike a living non-elf creature. Well, you can target literally anyone with this, but you should target a living non-elf creature. Once you hit them, they have to make a fortitude save against your class DC or spell DC, whichever one is higher. If they fail, then they're paralyzed for 1 round. Regardless of any of this, once they make that saving throw, then they are temporarily immune to Paralyzing Slash for 24 hours. So once you tag someone with this, you can't hit them with it again and again and again to perpetually keep them paralyzed. If someone does actually fail, then they get to attempt a new save to end the paralysis at the end of their turns, and every single time that they do so, the DC decreases by 1. Inevitably, they are no longer going to be paralyzed. However, if they're paralyzed for a couple of turns, then you're perfectly capable of ripping them a new one. The important thing about this feat is that it does have the incapacitation traits. This means that you're not very likely to be able to paralyze, say, boss encounters, which is probably good for a balance perspective, but it would have been nice to have the ability to actually, paralyze a boss, but it's fine. You're still going to be able to rip your way through a bunch of town guards, because they're almost certainly going to be below your level by this point. Sickening Bite is a really interesting ability that makes your saliva cause severe nausea and mild fever in the living, which weakens them, so it's a lot easier for you to actually finish them off. Whenever you critically hit a creature with your Jaws attack, that creature is sickened 1, no save. This is a disease effect, so if they're immune to that, you're a bit out of luck. If you're satiated and willing to give it up, you can end it to make the target sickened 1 if you get a normal hit instead. Now, this isn't a reaction, so you can just make this decision whenever you want, and that's pretty worth it, because sickened is a pretty nasty condition that applies a penalty to basically every single thing a person does. The other important thing to keep in mind is this is not a critical specialization effect, meaning that this stacks with the brawling critical specialization effect of potentially making someone stunned. Or no, not stunned, slowed, which is even better. So, this can make your bite really, really nasty, and as we'll get to in a little bit, there's a way to make this even better. The Glutton for Flesh feat is a feat that I hinted at earlier in this video. At level 10, you have developed a capacity to store more flesh inside of your gaunt body, which allows you to be satiated for a little bit longer. If you use the consume flesh action while you are satiated, you become fully satiated instead of just wasting the flesh. Once you become fully satiated, you are fully satiated for 3 hours. After that 3-hour period, then you become normally satiated. If you're fully satiated, when an ability would end your satiation, like say if you turned a normal hit into applying the second from Sickening Bite, you would instead become satiated rather than unsatiated. So effectively, you have 2 uses of all of your abilities that use up your satiation. Also, if you take the Grave Strength feat, which is the one that gives you a bonus to your speed, while you are fully satiated, you get a plus 10 foot status bonus to your speed. As this is the only feat at level 10, this is absolutely amazing, especially if you use a lot of those feats that allow for you to use your satiation as some kind of currency. Plus, who doesn't want to eat more bodies? Corp Stench is a very, very nasty feat, but it is very, very, very good if annoying for your allies. Your body now, stinks to high heaven and back, as it probably should have since level 2, but now it's so bad that it is actually useful in combat. Anyone within a 10-foot emanation of you is nauseated, and they have to make a fortitude save against your class DC or spell DC, whichever one is higher, and if they fail, they become sickened 1 or slowed 1 on a critical failure. This is really nasty, and within the aura, the creatures take a -2 circumstance penalty to saves against any disease and to recover from the sickened condition. If a creature succeeds at its saving throw, then it's temporarily immune for 1 minute. Now, this is very good, because obviously, the Ghoul Dedication has a lot of ways to apply sickened, and a lot of ways to apply disease effects. The downside is, this affects your allies. Now, a kind GM might allow for a party to get inoculated to it over time, so if they spend a lot of time with you, they're just used to the stench. But rules as written, your allies are probably going to get sickened every once in a while, which can be a little bit frustrating to deal with. On top of all of the feats that are specific to ghouls, people with the Ghoul archetype can also take the Guarded Movement Monk feat, the Reactive Pursuit Rogue feat, and the Wall Run Monk feat. Guarded Movement and Reactive Pursuit can be taken at level 6, and they are pretty good. Guarded Movement gives a pretty large bonus to your AC against reactions that are provoked specifically by you moving, which obviously that's going to be good. A lot of creatures are going to be having an attack of opportunity, and being able to better dodge those attacks is going to be pretty good, especially if you're going to be chasing after your prey. Reactive Pursuit is exactly what you're looking for in that case, because it's all about chasing down prey. If someone within your reach moves away from you, you can use a reaction to stride up next to them, because there's no running here. Wall Run is a little bit more confusing, a little bit more situational. It allows for you to run up a wall in any direction. It could be horizontally across a gap, or it could just be straight up a tree. Regardless, you get one action at that point, and then you fall. It's honestly super situational, but in those situations, it can be a huge game changer. So in total, I do really like the way that the Ghoul was implemented. In particular, the whole satiated mechanic of you are satiated or you aren't satiated really reminds me actually of the panache mechanic from a swashbuckler, because it's a binary state of you are satiated or you aren't, and it really makes things a little bit more tactical than you might have thought a ghoul would actually be. If you make a corpse, then you can try and stick around them to constantly eat their flesh and then be able to use your more dangerous abilities more frequently, because yeah, normally you'd only be able to use Feverous Enzymes once in a fight if you boost it, but if you stay next to a corpse, then you can consume flesh, then use Feverous Enzymes and boost its effectiveness. That is really fun, and it really adds this interesting element of tactics into an archetype where I wasn't really expecting all that many tactics. Besides, the ability to play a ghoul more than makes up for any slightly lackluster feats that this archetype does possess, because ghouls are cool and they're literally everywhere in Pathfinder. Seriously, I feel like every single adventure path has a ghoul encounter somewhere in there. Being able to be on the other side of things for once is a really interesting experience, and I just like the way that this was implemented. Thanks for watching. This has been a fun video to make because I don't have a huge amount of time to do it, but regardless, I hope that it worked out well. I really, really love the way that this entire book came out, and I'm happy to be able to provide information on it for you guys. If you have any suggestions on things that I could do better or things that you would like to see, then I'd love to hear them down below, because honestly, coming up with ideas for what to make videos on is one of the hardest things about making YouTube videos. So I'd just like to hear what you guys would think. Regardless, until I see you next, live a wonderful life.